Welcome to Crossroads. On Crossroads, we're exploring the place of Armenia in Europe. We called it Crossroads because Armenia is at a turning point in its modern history. How will it balance between the powerful forces that are interacting in the Caucasus? Which friends, allies, civilizational values will it choose? It cannot be denied that there are very difficult choices to be made in the face of very considerable uncertainty in the world. So I've been interviewing some of those involved in the public debate on Armenia and the European Union to help us understand the ins and the outs of the matter. We turn today to someone who is absolutely central to the relationship between Armenia and the European Union, someone who knows everything there is to know about it, someone furthermore who has been involved in this relationship for very many years. I am talking, of course, of the European Union's ambassador to the Republic of Armenia, Vassilis Maragos. Ambassador, welcome to Crossroads.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Ambassador, that is a diplomatic rank, but the EU is not a country and therefore does not have ambassadors as such. Instead, you're actually the head of the European Union's delegation to the Republic of Armenia. But it's the same difference. You are a Greek by origin, by nationality. You are a political scientist. You studied in Athens, but I think also in Belgium at the Université Libre de Bruxelles, the ULB. And you have had a long career in the European institutions. You worked in Sofia, Bulgaria, Skopje, North Macedonia. You've had various positions in the administration that deals with the enlargement of the European Union. You've dealt with the Eastern Partnership, and in that capacity, you've worked a lot with the Republic of Armenia already. That position, of course, was back in Brussels. You also worked with Bosnia, Herzegovina and Kosovo, if I'm not mistaken. And finally, you became, 18 months ago roughly, you became ambassador of the European Union in Armenia, or head of the delegation, as I was saying. We'll start, if you're okay with that, by asking you to describe briefly the state of the relations between Armenia and the EU. Could you compare for instance, the state of Armenia-EU relations today to earlier periods or to the relations between other countries?
Thank you very much for the opportunity and congratulations for your program. I think even naming this program Crossroads is very inspiring because actually we are all the time at the crossroads. The crossroads play a big role in people-to-people contacts, in mobility, in trade, and I think this gives new opportunities now, as actually for a long time it has given a lot of opportunities, including, by the way, to Armenians. And I would like to start, because in our earlier conversation we talked a lot about Armenia, European identity issues. I would like really to start and to stress how much Armenians have participated in the processes which have taken place in Europe, in the territories of the current member states, in other third countries as well. And the presence of the Armenians in Europe, in the European Union, is a very important feature of the social and economic life for our European Union member states. So Armenia, if you like, is not only Armenia, it is something which goes beyond, and it is very much linked with the history, with the historical experiences of our peoples. So when we talk about the relations between the European Union and Armenia, we are talking about a relationship within the family. It is very, very important to stress that. It is not a relationship which started from scratch. We have presence, for instance, of the Armenian church in many of our countries. We have presence of Armenian merchants, and we have presence of Armenian cultural institutions. A couple of months ago, I visited, for instance, San Lazzaro. One Italian friend called it the Armenian island in Venice. This is something
it's the Isola degli Armeni.
Isola degli Armeni, indeed. And this really gives us, I think, a lot of space to work together to build the partnership. Now, when it comes to the official relations between the European Union and Armenia, clearly we are talking about a phase which is very positive, a phase where actually relations are stronger than ever. And in the past period, we have been able to further strengthen these relations. Just to give you a couple of examples, in October 2023, the European Council, following a number of meetings which took place in Granada in the margins of the European political community, very important developments during this period, the European Council, the leaders of the European Union, have asked to develop options to make the relationship between EU and Armenia stronger in all their dimensions. And we started to work on that. We have worked at different levels. We have had policy dialogue. We have discussed with the civil society. And we came up with the negotiation of a new partnership agenda, which is now actually close to finishing. But in the meantime, we have not stood idle. We have strengthened already the existing cooperation, notably through the presentation of a resilience and growth plan, which has brought actually the level of investments that the European Union is doing in Armenia to much higher levels. You recall that there was a very important meeting, high-level meeting, which took place actually to the day 1 year ago in Brussels on the 5th of April 2024. And there we are talking about how to further strengthen the relationship in different dimensions. I want to mention some of them. For instance, we are strengthening the level of investments in the private sector.
So that's still the resilience and growth plan you're talking
about? In the context
right,
of
yes.
the resilience and growth plan, there are a number of additional tools that we are using, including the guarantees that we provide to international financial institutions. In our case, for instance, we have the European Investment Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. They receive funds from the European Union budget, or they receive guarantees through the European Union budget. And these funds come to Armenia, as they come actually to other partner countries. On top of this, we are working on visa liberalization. I want to stress that this has been an expectation and a request by the Armenian side for quite some time. And last year we were able to launch this visa liberalization dialogue. As we speak, actually, we are working. There was a mission of experts still this week in Armenia to work out elements of the action plan, which will lead, hopefully, to the visa liberalization for the short-term trips for the Armenian citizens. And also we have upgraded our cooperation in the area of security. There was a very important decision by our member states to open the European Peace Facility for Armenia. As you know, when you look into the concerns of the Armenian citizens, security and, of course, peace and normalization is one of the main concerns. So we are upgrading our cooperation in this area, notably, as I mentioned, through the European Peace Facility, which will be providing assistance to the armed forces of Armenia. This assistance is non-lethal, but it is going to be very important for the strengthening of the capabilities, for instance, logistics, medical, in the area of the armed forces. And last but not least, I would like to mention the European Union mission in Armenia. European Union mission
monitoring mission.
The monitoring mission. The European Union mission in Armenia, EUMA, is doing the monitoring of borders. We just completed, actually, a couple of weeks ago, we completed the 2 years of its presence, and we renewed the mandate for another 2 years. And through its presence, through the monitoring, it, first of all, shows the solidarity of the European Union to Armenia. This becomes very visible through their patrols. I have had the honor and the pleasure to visit some of the places where they are monitoring, and I have seen how much and how positively the local population is reacting to their presence. And I think this demonstrates how much the European Union is focusing on peace and normalization in this region, but also how much it supports the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Armenia.
Yes. So that's a very rich answer. So I would like to unpack each one of these. You've brought up 4 themes here: visa facilitation, the peace facility, the monitoring, the mission in Armenia, EUMA, and last but not least, the investment program, the remind me the name? Resilience and Growth Plan. So we can start with the last. How do you assess the impact of the EUMA, the monitoring mission?
I think it is very clear that the EU monitoring mission, as you call it, is playing a very positive role. It is strengthening human security at the borders. It is also demonstrating on a daily basis through the professionalism of the monitors. It is demonstrating the solidarity of the European Union. For quite some time, actually in the whole year of 2024, we have seen a minimal number of incidents. I think it is a very significant presence and a very significant mission, which is, as I mentioned, strengthening Armenia's resilience at the border areas. But it is not only EUMA. We are also investing in the regions in some of the regions which are affected by the conflict. We are also investing a lot in the economic development, in small infrastructure, in education.
In the border regions.
I want to mention in particular our Resilient Syunik program. This is a Team Europe initiative. 11 partners participate apart from the European Union. We are deploying there a total so far of around 150 million euros. And we are doing different projects in the area of agriculture, in the area of renewables, in the area of education. Just to give you an example, recently we opened an EU-funded new TUMO center in Kapan, in Syunik. And actually, and we are working a lot with the impact hubs. There is, for instance, an impact hub in Goris. And all this is bringing very concrete opportunities also for economic development. Very often I hear the comment that one of the reassuring presences in Syunik, which is also one of the regions which are affected by conflict, one of the reassuring presences is Yuma, and another reassuring presence is also the different strands of cooperation under our Resilient Syunik initiative.
Right, so you're saying that those investments also contribute to security? Absolutely, because the people, when we're talking about security, we have to see this in a more holistic way. Employment is security, human security is very important. The presence of the monitors, of course, is providing this element. But I think that the people feel reassured when they see this overwhelming partnership between the European Union and Armenia. And I know that many people in Armenia are asking questions about this relationship. And I want to stress that we are here to support very concrete actions which affect the lives of people. Not ad hoc things which actually we would like to have a more lasting impact. But this lasting impact is coming with the investment by the private sector. So, for instance, when the European Union is providing loans to companies, it is mainly to support an existing investment proposal. It is mainly to support the talent that the Armenian people have. It is to support the spirit of entrepreneurship that the Armenian people deploy, not only in Armenia, as we said earlier, but also in other countries. But here our focus is really very much on this region and on the regions which can, where actually economic development is part of the overall strengthening of the resilience. And this is actually what I mentioned earlier, the Resilience and Growth Plan.
it is not only the private sector, it is also infrastructure. For instance, we are working to support the Caucasus transmission network. This is the strengthening of the electricity line between Armenia and Georgia. This will create more opportunities for export of electricity in Armenia, and actually in this way more opportunities for the investment in renewables, which is also part of our common commitment to phase out CO2 emissions and to strengthen clean energy.
So there's going to be construction, or there is construction of solar panels, of wind turbines?
We are actually working a lot. We have a number of investments which are underway in Maastricht, for instance. This has been supported by the EU. We are actually about to prepare the inauguration of a new project of solar panels in Tega. As you know, Tega, very close to Gori, is very close to the borders. The completion of the electricity line with Georgia will create more space for additional production. And there actually the possibilities of investment are huge. As you know, the Armenian highlands are quite exposed to the presence of sunshine for a long time throughout the year. So I think that the future potential of Armenia in this area is really very, very big. Mm-hmm. And actually this investment in energy, in clean energy, will create also more opportunities for sustainable jobs. As we have seen also in other countries which have done this transformation.
Before we move on to something else, is there any other area of major importance as part of the resilience and growth plan?
Yes, of course. We are investing in road infrastructure. This is a very important contribution that we have done in Armenia. Just to mention also for the benefit of our spectators, we also have invested in the highway between Gyumri and Yerevan. Right. We are about actually to inaugurate this segment, and we are now going to work on the bypass of Gyumri. So a ring, as you know from many European cities, which will create better conditions for use of the infrastructure by trucks, so that they don't need to pass through the city, cleaner environment in the city, and we are working actually on the Sijan-Kajaran project, which will actually bring the Syunik Mars much closer to Yerevan, and will bring also products from this region closer to the markets.
So infrastructure is a big part of the investments. Yes,
indeed. Okay. And of course, we are working a lot as well on issues which have to do with education. I would like really to insist on that. In Armenia, there is a big potential in the area of the human capital. We have a number of activities in this area. One of the projects that we are implementing is the reform of the secondary education. We have done investments in STEM curricula, but also equipment. There the focus have been very much in Tavush and Lori region. Right. But this is now extended, and on top of that I want to mention that we are supporting non-formal education. We have a big project underway with TUMO. It will be a convergence center next to the existing TUMO building. And also we are working on with COAF, the Children of Armenia Foundation, for the construction of 2 new centers in Syunik.
Okay, I won't ask any more questions. But I'm sure there is more, but I think we have an idea of how extensive this investment resilience and growth plan is. Let's move on to visa facilitation, if that's all right, or visa liberalization, I'm sorry. That's something that is of great interest to ordinary people in the diaspora in particular, who want to be visited by their family, and often that's a big issue, or people who work with Armenia and who find it difficult to invite visitors, guests, colleagues, business partners. What prospect is there of that, of visas actually being liberalized? What are we talking about here? Years?
At the end? At the end of the day, it is the quality of the process and the quality of the reforms which need to be implemented. This quality and the delivery is going to define the timelines.
Right.
It depends very much on the Armenian authorities, how fast they will implement the visa liberalization action plan, which is going to be presented to them. As I mentioned earlier, we work now on the preparation of such an action plan. And we expect to see a number of reforms underway.
What sort of reforms? What does the government have to do?
Yeah, I mean, we are working, as in past cases of visa liberalization, we are working on a number of blocks. One of them is linked with border management, with security of documents, for instance, passports, but also on issues which have to do with fundamental rights and rule of law. The idea is that once we have visa liberalization for the citizens of the country, that this movement takes place in conditions of security and safe movement without creating additional risks. As you know, within the European Union, issues of migration are very sensitive. And also, I want to stress that actually the visa liberalization dialogue with Armenia has been the only visa liberalization dialogue which has been opened in the European Union in the last 5 years. So it is not something which happens with other countries.
So, but if I understand well, so what, by removing the requirement for visa, you remove one control to the entrance of the European Union. So you want to make sure, basically, this is not an opportunity for criminal activities or illegal activities to take place.
Criminal activities, opportunities for illegal migration, because we are also talking about visa liberalization at the level of the European Union means short-term travels, maximum of 90 days presence in the EU for a period of 6 months. So it is not a free emigration. It is not a freedom of installation in the European Union. But, as you said, it is very, very important for people-to-people contacts between families, contacts between people, opportunities for young people to travel to the European Union, to see how it works, how it is the daily life there. We attach a lot of importance to that, but also it is more opportunities for businesses. This being said, we know the difficulties which exist when it comes to the implementation of our existing agreement, which is a visa facilitation agreement. But still, the visa facilitation agreement has provided such opportunities for facilitated travel. We are now working with our member states to make sure that these opportunities are fully used by the people who need to travel, including, by the way, tourists. And in this context, I want to mention that since we have signed our civil aviation agreement. This is another area of close cooperation between the EU and Armenia. We have seen actually an increase of the traffic of people, the movement of people between EU and Armenia, almost sevenfold. So since we signed this agreement in 2021, the people who travel to the EU are 6 times more than what was the case before. I know that there is an expectation that even more people travel. This is something that we fully support and we try to find ways to do it. But already we have seen a very significant increase in the presence of Armenian people and Armenian citizens in European Union member states.
So the last one of the 4 points you brought up was the peace facility. You mentioned the peace facility earlier on.
Yeah.
You said that it had been deployed to the benefit of Armenia, as you say, for non-lethal equipment.
Yes.
That means not for weapons.
Yeah.
But it was a very modest package by European standards. We're talking about 10 million euros.
Indeed.
Is there a prospect for a next phase, for an expanded deployment of the peace facility?
We are working on that. There has been a proposal by the Armenian side, and the High Representative Kallas presented this proposal to our member states. We are now working with our member states. We really need to make sure that all member states agree to this proposal. But until we have this decision, we cannot announce anything in this respect. But the discussion is underway.
Right. You mentioned that not every member state agrees with the proposal, and that's with this particular proposal. That is an issue in most important decisions of the EU. You need a consensus between the member states. That applies to the relationship between the EU and Armenia, generally speaking. In other words, if we're talking about accession, even if to start the accession process, you would need the support of all the member states. Or any treaty would have to be signed and ratified by every member state, every bilateral treaty, I mean. And we know in the case of Armenia, some member states have been reluctant. That's why, for instance, the peace facility came rather late. It was actually deployed after the second phase of the latest Karabakh war, after the ethnic cleansing in 2023. And of course, Armenia has had an issue with Hungary ever since 2012, I think it was, when they suspended diplomatic relations. I know the relations have been resumed, but Hungary has been an issue. I understand it's this is a very political question, but is there, to your knowledge, a perspective for a consensus on these, common sense decisions with Armenia? Can we build a consensus in the EU? Can we overcome those blockages?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that there are blockages. Actually, what I want to say and to stress and to reassure the people is that there is a very strong consensus in the European Union about the relations between EU and Armenia. Actually, without consensus in the European Union, you cannot achieve much. So whatever we achieve with the support of all our member states. I think this must be very clear, and we are not entering into any kind of conflict between member states when it comes to this. But of course, as you say, there may be different opinions, about a particular initiative, but the decisions, in particular last year, both on the European Peace Facility, but also on the launch of the visa liberalization dialogue, have been very significant, and the consensus between the EU member states has been very, very strong. So I would not think that we have problems of disagreements between our member states. But of course, the consensus has to continue to be built. The consensus needs to be there also in the next phases. Yes. And this is something on which we are working on a daily basis. One of my jobs, for instance, is to coordinate the ambassadors of the EU member states in Armenia, not only those who are resident, but also those who are not resident. We have actually all the EU member states are represented in Armenia, some of them by resident embassies, some of them through their embassies in Tbilisi. We have also some member states which are based in other countries. So all these people participate in our events. They come here. We have a policy dialogue, and we are discussing with the authorities. And I have to say here that also the Armenian authorities, the Armenian diplomacy has done miracles when it comes to engaging not only with the EU institutions, but also engaging with all member states and with each member state separately. So I wouldn't think that there is any member state with which Armenia does not have very good relations or excellent relations, and there is no member state which does not support what we are doing here. And this is really the strength of the European Union. Recently, President Costa, when he assumed his position as President of the European Council, said very clearly, together we are the European Union, the EU institutions and the EU member states. And this is correct, because the member states represent the citizens of the European Union. The member states in the Council, but also the European Parliament, which is also another big ally and supporter of what we try to do, are the ones who decide about the EU budget. So the budgets that we provide to Armenia come from our member states, from the council, from the parliament, each one of them, their own institutional position, and each one of them expecting this partnership to bring very concrete results for the benefit of the EU and also for the benefit of Armenia.
All right. So you say for the benefit of the EU. What's in it for the EU? Generally speaking, why would the EU... You've been talking about very substantial EU activities in Armenia. I think everybody could hear that. So what's in it for the EU? Why would it do that?
Yeah. The European Union is investing in its neighborhood, in peace and normalization, peace, stability, prosperity of the neighborhood for obvious reasons. Because a peaceful neighborhood composed of countries which are democratic, with which we share values, is a big ally as well when it comes to rules-based international order. It creates new opportunities for all of us, for EU businesses, for the Armenian businesses. So our partnership has a very clear benefit when it comes to peace, prosperity, and this is a win-win investment. It is an investment in our joint values, and it is an investment in our joint prosperity. But of course, our focus is very much on peace and normalization in our neighborhood, and this is one of the reasons why we invest in this partnership.
Right. It's a vision for Europe. It's a project for Europe of which Armenia is part. Can we say that?
It's a project for Europe, it's a project for the neighborhood, but it is also a project for the world. Our focus is very much on projecting this rules-based international order and in projecting the partnership that we have with each partner. The partnership is defined jointly, of course, very clearly, so we can go as far with a partner as this partner wants to go, and as our policy dialogue and the dialogue between the stakeholders allows.
In Armenia they say the opposite. They'll say they'll go as far with the EU as the EU wants to go.
Yeah, I think it's a joint partnership, and I think we will we both define this partnership together.
Yes. Now, you are aware recently the parliament here in Armenia, in Yerevan, voted a law, a declarative law admittedly, that says that Armenia is starting its accession to the European Union. How do you interpret this law? What might its consequences be? How was it perceived in Brussels?
I think it is a very important development, clearly, and it shows the attractiveness of our partnership, the attractiveness of the partnership, which is so strong already.
And which, if I may say so, is supported by an overwhelming majority in public opinion. We're talking of almost 80% support for the EU.
Yeah. Thank you for this additional element. Now, of course, this law is not very operational. It is Armenia has not applied for membership to the European Union. So for us, it is certainly a very important development. And we, of course, monitor and discuss and with all stakeholders about the next steps in our partnership. I think, as I mentioned, the partnership will be very clearly defined by both partners. And I think here the Armenian people will shape very much their will and their wishes on how they want to see the partnership, develop. As I mentioned earlier, we have never had such a strong relationship. The developments which have brought and on which we have been discussing for quite some time now are going to bring very concrete benefits to the Armenian people, to the Armenian businesses, to Armenia's sovereignty and, of course, capacity of action in this region. And I believe that this is a very concrete result of this partnership. Sometimes we talk about actually using the potential of the agreement which exists between the European Union and Armenia, the Comprehensive and Enhanced Partnership Agreement. This is part actually of our daily dialogue with the Armenian authorities. There are a lot of reforms which have been defined there. And many of these reforms, when they are implemented, they bring very concrete results to the life of people, to the life of businesses, the competitiveness of the economy. Just to give you an example, if and when Armenia introduces intellectual property legislation which is up to the European standards, this has a very immediate impact on the creators of content and cultural values here in Armenia. It strengthens Armenia's capability to produce such works of art, for instance, or IT products. And this strengthens not only the economy, but also the international protection of those products which are supported by intellectual property. In the area of environment, for instance, and here this is another area of investments which we are doing, either through loans to the state. For instance, we have recently inaugurated waste management infrastructure in the Kotaik region. But this strengthens also the environmental protection and the health of people in these regions which are affected by these investments. Again, we're talking about investments which are linked with the modernization of the Armenian state, which are linked with its international connectivity, and which bring very concrete benefits actually to both sides, as I mentioned.
Yeah, so you're saying that on the way to accession, there's a lot of benefits. Is that your argument? Yeah.
What I'm saying is that these reforms, which are already included in SEPA, once implemented, they bring very concrete benefits to the people. SEPA is based on EU acquis, on legislation of the EU in many areas. I can give you another example, for instance, that we are discussing in the context of visa dialogue, the visa liberalization. This is the protection of personal data. Strengthening of the protection of personal data, again, in a period when we are all affected by developments in the technology which actually make the traffic or the use of personal data very easy. We would like, really, all of us to have higher protection of privacy, as we see in the European Union. And this is something which, again, is going to bring very concrete benefits to the Armenian people.
All right. But if I can approach the question brutally, what happens if tomorrow on your desk you find a letter by the Armenian government saying we're hereby applying to join the European Union? What happens next?
Okay. There is a very clear procedure when a country wants to become a member state of the European Union. And actually, it's not only the procedure, it's also the principle. The principle, already enshrined in the treaties, in the Treaty of the European Union, is that every European state which conforms and is committing to the values of the European Union, which is mainly about democracy and human rights and rule of law, every European state can apply for membership to the European Union. So this is a right which any European state has. It's very clear. And nobody can tell you that you don't have this right because it is in the treaties. The second, however...
Where is the border of Europe?
I think it's a very interesting question, and I think there are many scholars. There are many scholars which have commented about this. Let me just say one word. Armenia is a member of the Council of Europe, so obviously all the members of the Council of Europe are European states. So I don't know if anybody argues that Armenia is not a European state, but again, in my opinion, it is a matter of choice, and it is a matter of political interpretation. Do you want to be part of this civilizational space that we call Europe and the political space or not? It's a matter of choice. Nobody will tell you. There is no article in the European Union Treaty which obliges a European state to apply for membership. So it is actually a combination. And I think that it is really important to reflect together what we want to achieve, what are the values on which we are focusing, because at the end of the day, it is the people who have to decide where they want to belong and what they want to do. But let me also clarify something. I will never receive an application for membership to the European Union because these applications are not submitted to the EU ambassador in a third country. They are submitted to the Council and it is normally the rotating presidency of the Council which receives the application, and then the procedure, is that this application then it is considered by all member states, and if there is consensus, there is a request to the European Commission to prepare an opinion. And the Commission has a very clear mandate in the first place to prepare the opinion from the treaties, but also has a very clear expertise, as it has done also in previous cases of enlargement policy. As you know, we have have currently a very big priority on enlargement. There are a number of countries which have lined up for membership to the European Union, and the European Union is investing in these countries to prepare them for membership as it has been decided by the Council.
Great. In this whole process we'll change tack a little bit. Or let's talk a little bit more about security, and in particular about the war. In 2020, as you well know, there was a terrible war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. As you well know, although you weren't the ambassador at the time, the European institutions and media at the time actually showed very little interest in this war by comparison with other conflicts. If you compared with Kosovo in 1999, Georgia in 2008, and nowadays Gaza and Ukraine. At the time, the president of Armenia came to Brussels and warned that if NATO did not restrain Turkey, war would be coming to Europe, since Turkey was also involved in that war, which indeed it did. The war came to Europe just 18 months later. How should we interpret the lack of interest in the conflict in this region at that time? Would you agree that the EU's attitude changed? Well, in 2022, I assume you do, when the EUMA was first sent to Armenia. So could you help us understand this switch that happened about 2 or 3 years ago?
Thank you for the question. Of course, people have lots of questions about the past, what has happened, but I think it would be unfair to say that the European Union did not show interest at the time. I was closely following what was happening in the region at the time, and I think the European Union made very clear calls and and expressed its wish to see a quick termination of any military action, and also has supported the peace process. So I think that it's a matter of interpretation. It was not my mandate at the time to deal with that, but I think that we should not go so much into the past. What I want to stress is that we are very much committed, not only now, in the whole period, in particular after 2022, as you mentioned, with the presence of EUMA, but also through the Brussels process, we have been very much committed to helping the partners in these conflicts, in this conflict, in other conflicts as well, but let's talk about this one, to achieve peace and normalization in the region. And this is a very strong will and wish on the side of all our member states, on the side of the EU institutions, and actually through the presence of the EU mission in Armenia, which, as you know, started even a little bit earlier with a smaller capacity transition team. We have demonstrated how much we are committed to this peace and normalization. And since then, we continue actually to invest in peace. We are working with all the partners in the region. We have a special representative who was actually in Armenia last week to discuss with the partners, but also to address all the some of the effects of this conflict. And here I would like to mention in particular our support to the refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh. Right after the exodus in autumn 2023, we have mobilized very significant support. Part of this support has gone through humanitarian assistance. Part of this support has gone through psychosocial assistance that we are actually continuing to provide, and part of this support has gone through the state institutions through a very significant budget support program that we have already started to disburse. We are now discussing with the authorities about the next phase, which will bring to the state an additional amount of 25 million euros of grant assistance. We know that this has been a very difficult period. It's a very difficult plight for all the refugees. I want here to, and I know that not everything may be precisely as we would all like to see, but I would like here to pay tribute to the commitment of, first of all, the Armenian people who have supported this wave of refugees. Lots of human tragedies. I have met many refugees who are trying to find and to create a new life here in Armenia. It is very difficult for them. As I said, our assistance is small in comparison to what they expect. But I'm also very encouraged by their courage, by their resilience, but also by their spirit of survival, of creation. And very often in our daily life, in our daily work, we come across this very strong spirit, and we believe that this is bringing additional elements and very strong elements which make this country even stronger and more resilient. So we have to see also the positive side of what is happening, and actually to engage with all the people in a very constructive way and help them to decide to make a new life here, of course, as they like, but actually bringing their own culture, their own history. I had the opportunity recently to meet a very resilient group of elderly ladies from Nagorno-Karabakh who are working in different activities in Goris, in particular supported by the WINET group that we support as well. And I was so much touched by their knowledge, history, spirit, but also their the culture that they bring with them, and their resilience and readiness to embrace new opportunities.
Thank you for those inspiring words and those very important projects. We need not go back further into history today. But sometimes understanding the history, and in particular the history of the last 5 years, 10 years, helps you to prepare the future. So I would disagree with you respectfully on that point. I think looking back on what happened, including in the Armenia-EU relationship at the time, is useful for the future.
Of course, absolutely.
We're running out of time. So I will just ask you one more question, and it's an important question, at least to Belgahai and to its listeners, because, as you know, Armenia has a very vast diaspora. You mentioned it at the very beginning. It has been very active historically. It is very present in Europe today. What's the role of the diaspora in Europe in contributing to that relationship between Armenia and the EU?
I want to greet, through you and through your program, I want to greet all the Armenian diaspora people, all the people who have a link with Armenia, for their resilience, for actually preserving the Armenian culture, which is so important for European culture, but also for the role that they already play. They play already a very important role of being a bridge between the European Union at large, but also their respective communities where they are established, and actually they thrive. The Armenian people and the Armenian diaspora is playing, I think, a very significant role, sometimes beyond the numbers in the societies where they are established, sometimes established from generations, sometimes more recent ones. And I think that they can play an even more important role in the future. The diaspora is an important asset for Armenia, for the Armenian state. I know that sometimes there are disagreements. There are disagreements in any family about how one should move forward. And actually the disagreements are part of our democratic culture. We should not forget about that. And here first of all, I want to stress that as European Union, we have been supporting a lot of diaspora projects here in Armenia. I mentioned already TUMO, COAF. These are diaspora projects, of course, with a very significant Armenia proper component. But I think that we can do even better in the future in order to bring the talent, the expertise that the diaspora has, but also additional spirit of entrepreneurship that I see very often in the diaspora in making investments in Armenia more sustainable, more modern, based on the experiences that we have all acquired, and certainly the Armenian diaspora has acquired where they live. And here in particular, I want to stress the diaspora that we have in the European Union member states. Actually, as a representative of the European Union, to some extent, I also represent these people, and I'm happy to even strengthen further the dialogue that we already have with them.
Ambassador, thank you very much. This has been a very informative interview. You've shared your insights, your experience, and as I said from the outset, your vast knowledge, obviously, of the impact that the EU is having in Armenia and of that relationship. So on behalf of Belgahai and of our listeners, thank you for your time. And we look forward to seeing you again soon on Belgahai.
Thank you very much. Norha Kaluchun.
And to our listeners, meet us again with a new guest soon on Crossroads.